I almost can't believe this story is real, but then I kind of can. Look, under Trump, a bunch of things people said would never happen happened. They complained the economy would tank, and the economy did really, really well. They claimed the trade war would be bad, but now we're trouncing China and we're doing way better economically. And Washington Examiner, race relations and position of minorities is better under Trump than Obama. I almost don't want to believe it because it's kind of like, well, that doesn't seem right. We have all these hate crime hoaxes. It seems worse than ever. We've got the woke social justice left, the screeching. Yet for some reason, people think things are better. And then even with all of that fake, the fake hate crime stuff, Justice Smollett, all that stuff, I'm kind of like, well, you know what, man? Maybe Trump really has done something better. And everybody was wrong because these people predicted things about Trump that always tend to be wrong. I look at this shocked. And then I say, well, no, at this point, I'll tell you what, my bias isn't in favor of anything Trump is doing in the presidency. It's against the media because they seem to get it wrong all the time. Let's read the story from the Washington Examiner. They say race relations and position of minorities is better under Trump than Obama. Satisfaction with race relations in the United States has jumped under President Trump. The latest indication that the Republican is making significant inroads with blacks and other minorities in advance of the 2020 presidential election. New details from a Gallup survey on satisfaction said race relations and the position of minorities under Trump are far higher than they were under President Barack Obama, the nation's first black president. Race relations scored the highest satisfaction advance, 14 points from 22% at the end of the Obama administration to 36% this month, said Gallup. What? And the position of blacks and other racial minorities in the nation jumped 9 points from 37% in January 2017 to 46% right now. What? Wow. Now, I will say, man, we know under Trump, unemployment is down across the board for the black and Latino communities, for everybody, basically. So perhaps that's a contributing factor. But man, I'd imagine with all of the woke lefties, they'd be complaining things were worse. But maybe there's a different truth buried here, that the woke fringe left is such a fringe minority. They dominate the conversation with insane ideas that no one believes. You know what, man? This is Trump's victory march right here. Because if minority voters who traditionally vote for Democrat are telling polling agencies, actually, we're doing pretty good, we feel great, Donald Trump's going to win. We've seen multiple polls now saying support in the black community for Donald Trump is like 30 to 36%. That's got Democrats shaking in their boots. Because the rule goes, if 20% or more of the black community votes for a Republican, the Democrats will never win until they get that number back down. They say the poll bolsters several others that have shown Trump picking up support from blacks and Hispanics 10 months before Election Day. Some notable polls have shown black support at up to 34%, though GOP pollsters suggest that once the Democrats pick a nominee, support for Trump will drop back to 12 to 14%. But that would be historic for a Republican presidential candidate and could turn the race for Trump, they added. White House officials have credited the rise in support from African Americans and other minorities to the improved economy, historically low unemployment for blacks, Hispanics, and women, prison reform, and urban renewal programs. I'm going to stop right here. Trump, prison reform, that criminal justice reform bill, bipartisan support, everybody loved that. Everybody was happy with that. And you know what? What's funny is the media loves to hate on Trump no matter what he does. When Trump does something everyone does like, they just don't talk about it. Nobody wants to mention that it was a slam dunk. You get Democrats and Republicans on board, we do real criminal justice reform, people are going to be happy about it. That's really moving the country forward. And that's going to earn Trump a ton of support because you even hear people in the black community saying, you got to hear about what Trump is doing here. It makes sense. What's more, Gallup said the nation's average satisfaction rate is at a 15-year high. Americans' average satisfaction rating for the 27 issues Gallup has tracked consistently since 2001 is now 47%. This is up 3 points from a year ago and is the highest since the January 2005 poll. Today's average satisfaction is roughly on par with the level of the early 2000s. Only in 2002 was the average for this metric substantially higher than it is today. The average 53% recorded that year reflected heightened satisfaction as Americans were in full, quote, rally around the flag mode shortly after the 9/11 attacks. I'll tell you what, man, this is crazy. Now, a lot of people talk about how if you get war or crisis, the president's approval rating is going to go up. Trump is getting these approval boosts in relative peacetime. Now, I say peacetime, I know. We're still, stuck in Iraq and Afghanistan and other stupid wars, which we're not supposed to be in. But what I mean is, we've had no 9/11. There's no great crisis. We got a bunch of lazy millennials sitting around eating Sour Patch Kids, watching, anime or whatever. And everything seems to be going pretty well. The economy's booming, unemployment is down. People are having a good time of it. I mean, there's still a lot of people who complain all day and night and try and cause chaos. We got the impeachment stuff going on. But Trump's earned an approval rating without the aid of some catastrophe. I say aid not in a positive sense. I mean, literally, when something chaotic happens, the president rises to action and people then say, thank you for doing this. Technically, I guess you can say there was a crisis that was being addressed, and it's being addressed by Trump. We had the opioid crisis. We had unemployment, the loss of manufacturing, and the economy is improving dramatically. So I'm sure it's safe to say a lot of people are looking at this and saying the president is doing it right. And now American satisfaction is at a 15-year high. Something no one thought possible, and that's truly amazing. But I think what we're really seeing here makes sense. Nationalism. Donald Trump's all about improving the American circumstance, right? So when you had people like, Hillary or Obama, even Bush, Clinton, their whole thing was internationalism. They were the world police. They were the ones traveling around the globe trying to figure out how we can change the world and make it in our image. Trump has changed all that. Trump's withholding aid from countries because he's like, why should America pay for this? Well, what do you think happens when Trump says we're not going to give away money to other countries? Surprise, surprise, our own country starts to do a lot better. What do you think happens when Trump says we are not going to prioritize non-citizens getting benefits and getting jobs in our country? We're going to make sure if you're a citizen and you're paying taxes, you are first in line for that job, promotion, or access to resources. I don't understand why people on the left think that doesn't make sense. Like, we're part of a community, right? We all pay our subscription fee, our taxes. We all contribute in some way, even if we disagree politically. Wouldn't it make sense we're first in line for what we pay for? Now, Trump is one of the first presidents in a long time to be doing that, and that's why a lot of people like him. Now, I actually lean a little bit more towards internationalism than Trump and Trump supporters do. But I'm, moderate type, so I totally get what Trump is doing and why he's doing it. I understand it. Even Bernie Sanders used to, until he decided to start pandering to earn that woke left vote because it was the closest thing he could get. Sanders, as a socialist, couldn't actually get regular Americans to support him, so he went after the young people who are socialists for some reason. But let me tell you what's really, really fascinating to me about this poll. Why I absolutely just didn't want to believe that people believe race relations are better. Check this out. This is a story from June 25th. It says hate crime hoaxes are more common than you think. A political scientist found that fewer than 1 in 3 of 304 such allegations was genuine. I don't care how many hate crimes are hoaxes or not. The fact is, we have a bunch of stories about hate crimes. We have a consistent narrative about white men. And we have all of these stories about hoaxes as well. With the rise of the woke far left, I'd imagine the perception would be that things are getting worse. But for some reason, it's just not true. Maybe that's what they're really after. Maybe the woke far left is desperately trying to create the perception of race relations getting worse when they're getting better and better. I think one of the contributing factors is like Candace Owens and Kanye West, for sure, in the black community, rallying support around Republicans and bringing people together. I mean, granted, look, they're both divisive characters to a certain degree, but they're kind of changing, how the lines are drawn. And the rise of support from these communities and groups like Latinos for Trump, you now have Republicans actually diversifying. Here's what I love. When Candace Owens comes out, supports Trump, you'd think that the left would then say, we're glad to see Republicans are embracing diversity. They're not. They attack Candace, they attack Kanye, they insult them, they call them slurs. But the Republicans are doing what you asked for. This is why there's no winning with whatever the modern iteration of the left is. One example I love citing, they're trying to build a high-speed rail in the UK to reduce carbon emissions. Environmental activists are blocking it because they don't think they should build it. And I'm just confused as to what you really want. If Kanye West comes out for Trump and Candace Owens comes out for Trump, shouldn't the Democrats be like, we really appreciate that, our colleagues in the Republican Party are truly embracing diversity? But they're not. They still rag on them for being white men and ignore or smear Candace, Kanye West, and all the others who are active, Trump supporters who happen to not be white. I think it's fair to point out that on the left, there is a weird bubble perspective bore from these big urban centers, and they have no idea what Republicans actually think. And that's where you get me, a moderate. I grew up in a big city, but I actually talked to Republicans to see what they think. So I have a general view that's more understanding of what both sides actually want to talk about. Whereas the left views Republicans as complete boogeymen, the right tends to understand the left are just naive. And that's a saying. Republicans think Democrats are naive, but Democrats think Republicans are evil. And it probably has to do with the fact that if you grow up in a big city, you don't hear what these people are saying. It's really, really simple, actually. When you live in a city, you talk to all your friends and play a game of telephone. You watch the news. If you live in a rural area, you less frequently talk to your local communities because you're not as close and it's not as dense, population-wise, but you're still getting the same media. So you hear what they think and you hear what your neighbors think and you get a more broad view. I'll leave it there, though. You get the point. The main factor here that I think is fascinating is that you'd expect this to not be the case, but something Trump is doing is working. So, look, man, it doesn't matter if you like the guy or hate the guy. It doesn't matter if you like Bernie or don't. I think running from the facts will guarantee your defeat. So I'll tell you this. If you're a Bernie supporter, you have to look at the data, recognize it as true, respect that, and that's your first in to talk to voters to see what you need to do to actually earn their vote. I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Podcast at 6:30 on all podcast platforms. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all next time.